Yay.
Yay.
Welcome back to Women Rabbis Talk, a podcast where women rabbis talk to other women rabbis about being women rabbis. Yay. I'm Rabbi Marci Bellows, and with me, as always, is
Rabbi Emma Gottlieb. Hi. So good to be back in this space with you.
oh, so good to be with you too. It's been a little while. It's been a hot
It
minute,
has been a hot minute. Yeah. I moved to a different continent.
which we wouldn't know by looking behind you.
No, because my Zoom screen is still in South Africa, but I'm back in Canada. Hooray.
Oh my gosh. And how long have you been back in Canada now?
Since April, so 7 months,
Wow.
almost eight. Yeah.
Yeah. But you are still having trouble adapting to the weather. I understand.
Yeah, I'm not ready for winter. The dogs are ready. I've gotten the dogs ready, but I am not ready. And it's just going to happen. And I'm just going to get through it. And that's that.
You're going to be okay.
I'm going to be okay.
You're a tough cookie.
I'm a tough cookie. I've got a really warm coat. It's going to be fun.
That's what's necessary. So, what are we doing here today?
So we have started a read along Chevruta with one another, and we are hoping to invite others to read along and comment along with us. We missed studying with one another, and this is how we decided to come back to it. And basically, you and I are meeting each week, and we're reading through a book. And the book we chose to start with is Living the Letters by Rabbi Michael Marmur, who was our teacher in Jerusalem. Was he your teacher in Jerusalem? He was my teacher in Jerusalem.
Yeah. And he
Yeah.
was, I want to say, dean of the rabbinical school
He
there.
was the dean of the campus at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he is a incredible, witty, brilliant, warm rabbi and teacher. And we were excited to discover that his book is not only new and out and available, but is open source, which is always lovely. And that's what we're reading. So we started last week and we um, worked together through the first bit of the introduction. And then we decided we were going to live stream or record and post going forward. So we'll maybe just start with a bit of a recap of the first bit that we read, what stood out for each of us, so that our anyone who is going to read along with us can catch up, and then we're going to keep going. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, what stood out to you, Marci? What do you remember from the beginning of the introduction that we read? Have you been thinking about it? Has it sort of shown up for you in any of your work or interactions this past week?
I've been thinking about, and I did quote this to somebody, probably not anywhere near as well as Michael Marmur writes, but his concern that modernity and the demands of modernity are going to get in the way of Reform Judaism's survival,
Mm-hmm.
if I can put it that way. That there are too many things getting in the way of what Reform Judaism offers as a movement, as a form of a religion, and it's just becoming more and more diluted. Is that how you understood what he was saying?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's also the part that really stuck with me. So we're talking about, for anyone who's looking at the book and looking to reference where we are. In the introduction, one of the first sections is a sort of subsection called "Can Modern Judaism Work?" And that's also what really was sticking with me. And I actually talked a little bit about it in my sermon this week.
Oh wow.
Um, and the part that was resonating with me was where he talked specifically about sort of the tension or the tricky balance between universalism and particularism, and how part of his concern, or where his concern sort of is stemming from, is that in liberal or modern or Reform Judaism, whatever um, way we want to describe it, part of what we do or have done is to um, lean away from the uncomfortable parts of Judaism, especially those that are rooted in patriarchy or that feel really out of line with our contemporary values. And which I think is true. We've done that. And part of what he's concerned about is that in many places or many communities, perhaps, we've done it in such a way that we've leaned so far into universal values that we have left people asking the question, if our values are just universal values, then why Judaism? Why do we even need this thing called Judaism? If what we're saying is that the particular parts of Judaism are outdated, and the parts that we're really clinging to are more universal, then why do we need it? And you and I talked a lot when we read it last week about whether or not we agreed with that take and how we felt about it as Reform rabbis, and if we felt that we were contributing to that, or what are the ways that we felt we weren't contributing to that, that we try really hard not to do that, and to figure out ways to lean away from the uncomfortable, but not to the point of tipping over fully into the universal that we try to um, reframe those parts of Jewish tradition and find newer meaning in them, or to find meaning even in the challenge of them, not to just dismiss them. Um, so we were sitting sort of uneasily with Marmur's question and his sort of fear that that's what's happening. And I think we were feeling sort of hopeful that if lots of rabbis are doing what we're doing, that won't happen. But he sees a lot more of the broader Jewish world than we do. And so maybe he's seeing lots of places where people aren't doing what we're doing. And that's leaving him concerned.
Right. Just to pull a quote from his section on modern Judaism here, when we're, as you said, we're in the introduction, which is really very rich before he starts getting into the letters themselves of the alphabet. He writes, I am concerned, however, on at least two fronts. First, that the cold light of reason does not generate enough warmth and passion to give us the energy we will all need to be equal to our challenges. And second, that in clearing away the debris of outdated beliefs and practices, we stop believing that distinct identities and rich vocabularies matter. He's worried that we'll be left with just something very mediocre
Yeah.
and insignificant to people's lives, and they will therefore just, dismiss it.
Right.
So yeah. So we
Okay.
are up to the section called Can Israel Live Up to Its Promise? I'm going to share my screen. Nothing like a
Already,
really
already
big.
has me feeling anxious. Just the type. Who else is anxious?
So hopefully people can see the screen if they're watching along on YouTube. Can Israel live up to its promise? Do you want to start reading?
Sure. Can Israel live up to its promise? I am afraid that the establishment of the State of Israel may prove to be not only the most consequential Jewish event in over a millennium, but also a challenge to which we may not be equal. There is an existential dimension to this fear. The professed aims of a number of groups, militias, and states in the Middle East are not to be dismissed as hyperbole. This fear is real and should be acknowledged, along with the knowledge that this fear has itself become an obstacle to overcoming our current impasse. Israel is threatened by implacable adversaries, and also compromised internally by the lack of a workable vision of how Jews and Palestinians may live with or alongside each other in security and dignity. Ooh, just that paragraph was a lot. I feel like we need to just tease that out for a second.
Yeah,
What
the
jumped
I
out at
mean,
you?
even already acknowledging the existential dread that we have legitimately for the existence of the state of Israel because of just the multitude of threats to its existence all the time, is, and he says it's not hyperbole, it's absolutely true and it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So on the one hand, there are real fears about survival that we can't just dismiss.
right.
Right. Okay. There are other profound concerns too regarding the state of Israel. While patriotic politicians and apologists style Israel an instinctive democracy, pointing to both our institutions and our argumentative natures, they ignore the palpable erosion of democratic norms, which has characterized Israeli society for decades. An astounding number of Jewish Israeli citizens seem to be prepared to countenance continued inequalities between Jews and Arabs, and to espouse a systematic policy of disenfranchisement or conditional citizenship. So it goes too for the degree of economic inequity within Israel that most Israelis seem prepared or even happy to allow.
What do you make
I
of
feel
that?
like we need to remind folks also that Rabbi Marmur lives most of the time in Israel, and while not being Israeli born, has been Israeli residing for a very large part of his life and career. So he's writing as someone who really is inside Israel, not outside of Israel. Feels important to sort of acknowledge that. It's
Yeah, as
an
well as,
internal critique.
yeah, and noting that this book has come out post October 7th, 2023. We don't know exactly when he was writing it, but it is coming out, this year. It's a very, very recent book. Um, so his comments may or may not be influenced by what has taken place, all the changes that have taken place since October 7th.
Yeah. Okay. Should we keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Perhaps these two defining anxieties are, in fact, two aspects of one central question, since the state of Israel represents an encounter between the Jews and modernity. In Israel and in the diaspora, in all of the denominations and ideologies of modern Jewish life, this encounter is profoundly challenging. Yeah, there's no real getting around it, right? No matter where you are or what kind of Jew you are, you kind of end up coming back to this question when it comes to Israel.
Yeah. We have to reckon with it.
Yeah. Do you want to read?
Sure. However debilitating these anxieties may appear, I do not seek to deny them. There are people who insist that they have found some secret allowing them to rise above mundane concerns and leave anxiety behind. I wish them well, but I find it hard to take their insouciance at face value. Philosophies of life offering insights into our behavior and relationships matter a great deal. They cannot, however, take the place of engagement with the world. At their finest, they can help us engage more deeply with it. To be self satisfied in the face of the challenges faced by humanity may bespeak self delusion more than spiritual excellence. Huh.
Oh,
So if you're not worried about it, there's something wrong with you.
right.
Is that what you hear him saying?
Kind of, right? That it's like we, and it's sort of understandable, right? Especially if you're a real lover of Israel, um, or a real believer in the need of Israel as a place for the Jewish people, a particular place for the Jewish people. That sometimes it's easier to be in denial about these things because these are difficult and sometimes painful questions. And if having a Jewish homeland is important to you, then um, asking these questions means confronting whether or not that's really possible, um, to have a Jewish and democratic homeland. if both of those things are important to you. And sometimes it's easier to just not ask those questions, to sort of disengage, and just say, I love Israel. And so, and we need Israel. And so, whatever Israel does or decides, I'm going to stand by it and not think too deeply about it because it's scary and painful to think about it.
Right. And there's such a discomfort with the complexity necessary to really understand everything that goes on there and all of the history and all of the different variables that play into the decisions that are made in the government as well as in the populace. So much of Israel is anti-Netanyahu right now, but in America, there's this overwhelming feeling, and maybe in Canada as well, but I think especially in America, that like any criticism of Israel in like the organizational Jewish community is seen as very negative. And luckily, there are still plenty of institutions and organizations that are comfortable making criticisms of the government there, and of the choices that are being made that are not Jewish and democratic. I would say neither Jewish nor democratic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, yeah, and I think in order to confront these questions, we also, those of us who have been sort of getting comfortable in that space, part of what we've had to learn to do is to accept that sometimes there's more than one truth coexisting.
Yeah.
And um, that's really hard for a lot of folks to open themselves to or to wrap their minds around. Um, the idea that more than one thing can be true. I think in today's world, we have enough of a hard time with just one thing being true, with
Mm-hmm.
the idea of truth, um, let alone, two conflicting narratives being true. How can that be? Um, so I think that also compounds the maybe desire to just unplug from the conversation altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. Or to oversimplify it in some way. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
exactly.
All right.
Okay. No formula of words can make all these concerns evaporate. The lesson to be learned from the finest of our tradition is that we must face up to our fears, confront them, and stare them down. Like the bear hunt mentioned above, we're going on a bear hunt. We cannot rise above these fears and we cannot burrow beneath them. We will have to band together and work through them.
So it's
Anxiety.
really,
Yeah, no, go ahead.
sorry. No, I was going to say it's really interesting that both um with his discussion about modern Judaism and whether or not it can survive, and now this conversation about Israel, he's coming back to this same premise, and maybe this is giving us some insight into where he's going with the book in general, and how maybe the letters are going to help us. That the major challenges that we're facing as Jews today are not ones that we can avoid and are not ones that we can skirt, that we have to figure out how to confront them and move through them and acknowledge them and cope with them and all of that. That seems to be something he's coming back to.
Yeah, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and a lot of people just don't want to engage in anything that challenging.
Yeah.
But it seems to be, according to Michael Marmur, um, necessary to truly engage in the ways in which we should.
Yeah. I think he's saying, I hear him saying this even more strongly than necessary. I feel like he's saying this is a Jewish imperative, or this is
Ooh,
the Jewish imperative of today. That as Jews, we are obligated not to look away from our own challenges.
no, I like that.
Okay.
So he finishes this section by saying anxieties and fears may motivate this book, but alone they cannot generate a compelling response. For that, hope is called for.
We love hope.
We love hope.
We love
So,
hope, especially at the end of two really challenging presentations of, modern day Judaism that could be leaving us, feeling a bit hopeless. Um,
yes.
It's a nice reminder that he's going to take us back towards hope. We're not going to be sort of mired in his anxieties.
In despair. Yeah. Do you want to take over?
Sure. The next section is called hope. So that's good. In modern Hebrew, the word for hope is tikva. Two distinct root meanings for the term can be adduced. While the first implies a line, a thread, a link, the second relates to a pool or a reservoir. The first of these finds its echo in the second chapter of the book of Joshua, where Rahab is instructed to hang a scarlet cord from her window. And the term employed is tikvat chut hashani, the tikva of the scarlet thread. I don't think I ever noticed that before.
As long as Rahab is being shared, can I share a story about my mom?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because every year when this text is the Haftarah portion, I have to share the story in my mother's memory. And you might remember hearing this before, but she was at a facility recovering from a spinal surgery. She had been, discharged from the hospital, and she was going through physical therapy and everything. And, my mom worked as a cantor for so many decades and saw Hebrew everywhere. So she was talking to one of the people working with her and looked at her name tag. And she looks at her name tag and she says, Rehab Aid, where are you from? What a beautiful name. And the woman goes, no, 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 rehab aid.
I don't think I have heard that story before. That's hilarious. Um, do you know
Thank
the
you.
song "To See the World Through Jewish Eyes"? Do you remember that?
No.
It was like an old, I don't know. I feel like I learned it at camp or like I had, I think I'll have to ask my parents. I think I had a tape of music, which is like words that a young person wouldn't even understand. Um, and that it was called To See the World Through Jewish Eyes. And there was a song, like the first song on it was and that I'm like hearing that song now as you're telling the story because that's what your mom was doing. She was seeing the world through Jewish eyes.
Oh, I gotta look for that
um,
song now.
that is so funny.
It was
Um,
great.
okay, um, so somehow this scarlet thread that Rehab lowers from her window, for those who are familiar with the story of the spies who go ahead of Joshua to scout things out and find out that they can get in and out of the walled city through Rahab's window. Um, she has she has put this cord out of the window so that they will be able to find their way back. And I guess in lots of ways that is provides hope, right, for the success of the conquest
Yeah,
um,
beautiful.
of Joshua and the Israelites. Okay, so there's something about hope and the scarlet thread. Moses Chaim Luzzatto, the Italian mystic and poet born 300 years ago, composed a brief sermon on the theme of hope. In his explication, hope is understood as providing a line or link capable of penetrating directly to the higher reaches. Hope will bring a person out even from hell itself, since it provides a lifeline to the future. Ooh, okay, so there's he's giving us a linear idea of hope, that hope draws a line between us and some kind, and like what we are hoping for, or the hope of salvation, or faith in God, or whatever it is. But there's a linear direction to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the image of it being a chain or a link also.
Yeah.
Um, meaning that there's different parts to it and there's different components. It might not be entirely direct, but it is a connecting tissue.
That's really interesting, right? Like the difference between a rope and a chain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Lots to think about there. In a 1968 essay entitled Hope Jewish and Hope Secular, Eugene Borowitz, who was also our teacher, suggested a common thread between Jewish conceptions of hope and the ethos of modernity. He says, this is the quote now from Eugene Borowitz. Oh, you've got it up on the page. I forgot people are reading along. Okay. Both religion and the contemporary secular spirit are discontent with the present situation of the individual and society. They know things are not what they ought to be, and that is critical for man to devote himself to making them better. Secularists propose to do so by what we may call horizontal transcendence, by projecting human creativity forward through time. They hope to overcome the present problems. Thus, even in secular hope, there's also a certain measure of faith, a commitment that goes beyond the present evidence and is strong enough to build one's life upon. Right. So whether you're coming from a faith perspective or a secular perspective, hope is about looking ahead, right? There's like a linear, like there's a way to get from here to where I want to go. And I believe that it's possible. And that is hope.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here, those who are religious and those of a secular temper can meet, for this horizontal conception of hope is clearly to be seen in the Bible. The major Hebrew term for hope, kuf vav he, means in the Bible not just a state of soul, but an expectation in time.
I've never really
Hmm.
thought about the temporal element in hope, that it's going to require a waiting, or at least time to, what's the word? Effectuate it, to make it happen.
Right.
Sorry, Michael Marmur wants me to like, just makes me want to use really big words.
Yeah,
Um,
he uses a lot of big words. Um, it's good. It's challenging our brains a little. So yeah, the right, it's sort of like in one hand, we're holding this belief that what we want to happen will happen, right? And then in the other hand, we have this understanding that that thing is going to take time, and it may or may not be clear how much time.
right.
So it makes me think about like the expression that we use sometimes in Judaism, like soon and in our days. Like when we ask for something, may it be soon and in our days, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we hope this thing is going to happen, and we hope we're going to live to see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we believe this thing will happen, but we hope it'll happen in time for us to experience it,
Right. There's an uncertainty there.
right?
Mm. So there's a faith component in hope, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what he's saying. There's a certain measure of faith.
Even if you're not a religious person,
Right.
for both secular and religious folks, there's this element of faith that comes with hope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want to go?
Sure. So now that's the end of the Borowitz quote. And now this is Marmur speaking again. This notion of hope as a thread linking worlds and leading to a possible future is not the only image to be found within Jewish tradition. Jeremiah in 14:8 and in 17:13 describes God as Mikveh Yisrael, which is usually translated as the hope of Israel. Given the extremely well developed sense of wordplay and ambiguity in our tradition, it should come as no surprise that the sages linked this word to the identical term mikvah, meaning sacred pool or bath. The root kuf vav he also relates to the process of gathering, particularly as it applies to water. Rabbi Akiva played on this dual meaning and commented thus on Jeremiah's mikvah of Israel. Just as a mikvah purifies the impure, so does the Holy One of Blessing purify Israel.
Hmm. Wow. So there's this idea coming forward of immersing in something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that exactly clearly. And that is a different way of thinking about hope than that linear way, that hope is something you can immerse in and
Mm,
And also that when we immerse in hope, it can be transformative, just as a
Mhm.
mikveh is transformative.
And that God can be we can immerse in God,
Mm, wow. I like that.
right? If we immerse in the mikveh Israel that God is. Um, hmm.
Right.
And that would determine our future in that way. We would go into it in some kind of state of impurity, whatever that might mean. We come
Mm.
out of it purified, the encounter.
I wonder if that's almost like a that state of impurity almost correlates to a state of hopelessness.
Mm,
That if we can like immerse in this God mikvah, we can find our way back to faith and hope.
that's so beautiful.
Mm.
Here, it seems like he says that in the next paragraph. This possible meaning of pooling and gathering offers further insight into the meaning of hope. If hope is about the thin red line, the thread attaching us to the future, it is also about the comforting pool, providing us with solace, purification, and regeneration.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, Murmur, we're on the same
Yeah,
wavelength.
we gotcha. We see you.
Okay, we'll see it.
The word hope in all its iterations is nowhere more prominent than in the Hebrew Bible than in the book of Job. Tellingly, however, it almost invariably appears there in a negative context. Hope is a delusion, an impossibility. In one highly suggestive passage in chapter 14, Job has recourse to a metaphor from nature. The tree has tikva because, unlike an individual person, it can return from a state of desiccation and live.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Like on the one hand, we have this sort of theology that's just been presented that we can find hope in God. And we also have elements of our tradition that remind us that sometimes hope isn't helpful or isn't going to bear out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like Job is all about sort of figuring out how to accept suffering and the parts of life that we can't change and that hurt
Right,
us,
right.
right? And sometimes, I mean, we've both had difficult things happen to us in our lives, and we know, and anyone who's been through a really difficult thing knows that sometimes when you're in the darkest part of that thing, hope isn't helpful because the thing that's happening is going to happen
Right.
and it can't be changed. And hope in those situations can almost hurt you.
Yeah.
And because what you really need is to figure out how to accept and move through what's happening.
Yeah. Hope is almost irrelevant in those moments.
Right.
Um, it reminds me of the strange dissonance of singing Misha Berach at somebody's deathbed.
Mm.
And I've had families ask, like, why are you saying it here? It's obvious
Yeah.
this person is going to die. And and I don't always have a very clear answer for that. What's
Mhm.
come to me and what has, I guess, been comforting to me is that a miracles do happen. We do know there are people who can turn around. But B, we also say a general prayer of healing for the rest of the family as well.
Mhm.
So it's as much for the person lying there in the bed as well as for the
Yeah.
rest of the family and their own healing from this state.
Yeah. I would add to that that
Yeah.
sometimes healing is an end to suffering,
Mm,
right? That sometimes what we're praying for is that the person won't be in pain anymore. And that might be because they get better, or it might be because they die.
right.
Um, and that what we are hoping for at somebody's as somebody is nearing the end of life or has been for a very long time in a state of suffering, um, is one way or another an end to that suffering.
Mm,
And that Mishaberach can be a prayer that aids us in asking for that, in asking God to end the suffering one way or another. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, okay. So so sometimes hope can be tricky, right, in these kinds of dark moments, and we see that in the Job example.
Hmm. I'll do one more paragraph.
Okay.
The life of an individual person is such that the promise of a regeneration can, Job suggests, hold little consolation. In Jewish tradition, it is precisely this consolation that is offered by the family, the community, and the people of Israel. Hope takes me beyond myself and places me in a communal context. It implies, as the old Jewish tale has it, that there is good reason for the old to plant saplings in the full knowledge that they will not live to see the fruit of their labors. In our tradition, hope and community are irrevocably linked. I may not live to see the withered stump renewed, but I know that, as one ring on the tree, I am part of something which will yet live again. It is interesting to note that the Hebrew Bible does not know of, quote, those who hope for God, end quote, which is from Isaiah 40:31, 49:23, and Psalms 37:9 in the singular form. They only appear in the plural.
So it's so interesting, right? Like there are times when we may not have individual hope, like where the individual may not have hope, but for themselves or their
Right,
own
right.
situation. But they might be able to still tap into a collective hope for a time that is better, that they may or may not, like if we go back to that soon and in our days expression, right? We don't say, I hope this will happen. I only care about this happening if it's going to happen to me.
Mm,
We say, may it happen, and it would be great if I live to see it. But
yeah,
even if I don't live to see it, I'm still part of, I still benefit from, I still feel comforted by a hope that it will one day happen, even if I don't live to see it. And maybe it's easier for me to accept my own experiences of suffering if I hope that one day other people won't have to suffer in that way,
mm,
right? That like
right.
we can better um, live through an experience of war if we believe that one day there's going to be peace.
Yeah.
Um,
And
you
for
know,
our community as a whole, even if we're not the ones who get to experience that
right,
individually. Yeah.
right. Um, and I think Marmur is really sort of reminding me here that Judaism really teaches this idea of collective hope much more than it teaches this idea of individual hope. And that we have had so many parts of Jewish history where it was really impossible to say to the individual, your suffering is going to end. But where we could say, one day our suffering will end.
Yes.
And that idea is really so deeply woven into Jewish prayer and Jewish text and Jewish theology. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Take it
Let's see if
away.
we can come to the conclusion of this section. Let's see how much further. Yeah, we're almost there. All right. Um, Hope is thus not only a thin line, it is also a nourishing pool. It is that which links person to person, generation to generation. Hope is life itself. The Talmud has its own version of the adage that where there is life, there is hope. The activist and entrepreneur Maoz Inon, whose parents were murdered on October 7th, 2023, teaches that hope is not a feeling that I wait for. I make hope. Hope is a communal endeavor, something we create together. The thread must be woven, the pool must be dug. So hope is a choice.
Hope is a choice, it's an action, it's mindful, it's something that you decide to do and to have.
Yeah. In good in good Jewish tradition, that's interesting. Is there bad Jewish tradition? In good Jewish tradition, I mean, I guess there probably is, but in good Jewish tradition, this work has been sparked by anxiety. In equally typical fashion, it draws upon resources of hope and strives to find a thread, a lead, a clue. Anxiety is a drain, while hope is a wellspring. Anxiety insists, hope inspires. Whew, I just got chills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Anxiety insists and hope inspires.
Like, and again, like he was saying, we can't avoid our anxieties. We can't avoid the concerns of today. We have to confront them, but we don't have to confront them in hopelessness. We
Right.
can confront them with hope. I feel like that's what he's saying, and that's where he's and I'm hoping in all of this hope that that's part of what is going to happen with his teaching about the letters, that that's going to keep coming back to sort of a guide for how to move through our anxieties with hope.
Hmm. Not bad, eh?
Very good. He's a smart guy, that Marmur.
He is a smart guy, that
Um,
Marmor.
all right. Okay. This seems like a good place for us to stop for the day, for the week. Um, we've come to the end of a section. So we didn't bless. We need to get better at our routines. But so next week, let's
Oh,
try to remember we gotta say a blessing at the beginning.
oh yeah.
And then do we want to set some kind of blessing or intention at the end based on what we were reading?
Mm. My intention moving forward from this text is to remember that hope is a doing. It's not just a feeling, but you have to actually engage with it actively. What about for you?
Mm, is a choice.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I am going to try to keep in mind. I guess maybe I feel like there's an invitation for those of us who walk through difficult times with other people. Um, I feel like there's a reminder in this to be cautious or careful and intentional about the language of hope that we use with others in different situations, and
Mm.
that sometimes the language of hope is helpful, and sometimes the language of hope might not be helpful. And um, you know, lots of rabbis are get into the business because we like to fix and we like to help, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and when people like to fix and like to help, then often the first thing that they go to is like wanting to cheer people up or wanting
Yeah.
to comfort through hope, offer comfort through hope. And I think it's important for us to ask ourselves before we offer those words, if this is the right time for those words.
Yeah. Well
And
said.
that sometimes it might not be the right time for those words. Um, or to think about whether we want to lean into some kind of collective offering of hope if there isn't an individual kind of hope that we can offer.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it's been a pleasure studying with you.
Always a pleasure studying with you. And
If For those who are watching, if you have thoughts or comments or questions about what we were reading, pop them into the chat here, into the comments, wherever we post this, wherever you're finding it. And then we can also try to bring some of your questions and insights out um, into our study next week,
yeah, be part of the
and bring you all
Chevruta.
into the conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
join us.
All right. Thank you.
Be well, everybody.